Hello, everyone. It is Rory here at that Eurovision site, and today I am joined by the lovely Daniel. How are you doing?
Oh, good, good. Wow.
Lovely, lovely. Well, it's nice to see you again after post Eurovision. Now we're all kind of in the off season, so anything can happen. We're all just sort of combing over all of the different stats and everything like that. So it's quite nice to kind of take a breather from that and actually talk about something a little bit more sort of off the cuff, I guess, which is a lot nicer, isn't
Yeah.
it? So as some of you may have seen from the title of this video or from this podcast, we are going to be looking at Portugal. And I mean, it should come as no surprise, given that both of us are particularly sort of well versed in being Portugal stands. But yeah, so we are going to be looking at the sort of rebirth of Festival da Canção, the national selection that it takes place. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we should sort of give a little bit of context just before we get started. So, sort of going into Eurovision 2017, Portugal had been the longest country to take part in Eurovision that had not scored a win yet. And after sort of a string of poor results, they hadn't qualified since 2010. In 2015, they had sort of just qualified, well, they just missed out by they were in 14th place, so probably not the best in terms of actual results. But yeah, so they failed to qualify again, and then 2016 came around, and for some reason, RTP is just allergic to taking part in a Swedish Eurovision. I mean, we're not counting this year, obviously, but yeah, it's sort of going into that. Then I think they kind of realized, okay, we need to kind of shake things up a little bit. So RTP had a complete sort of shift in how it sort of produced everything, and they got very, very lucky on their first go, I have to
Yeah.
say, because they ended up winning with Salvador Sobral and Amar Pelos Dois. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was a very interesting idea. I mean, sort of, I don't know, had you watched sort of any of Festival da Canção sort of previous to 2017, or how was your sort of relationship with Festival da Canção?
Uh, uh, I've come back to it from not having seen it before, not until after the thing, and I can see why it went through a rebrand because it clearly wasn't working very well, and I sort of think from going back and watching 2017, they got lucky Salvador was there because I think if he wasn't, they'd have gone, well, that was all for nothing, and then just scrapped it. So I think, because from watching it, 2017, it was just like a blueprint of what it is now, I think, because they've just continued to it's still mostly the same show, but they've just worked at it and trimmed away it over time to the point where it's just they've taken the concept and now it's just like the full built, polished, really good thing without much really changing at all in the essence of it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's so interesting when you kind of look at how it used to be, because sort of going back through some of sort of the previous editions, even before 2017, I mean, the production value of the show was definitely a lot less, I would like to say.
Yeah,
Um, which is a shame, obviously, because I mean, obviously the songs were still good for the time. Obviously,
yeah,
we're talking sort of 2000s, and that was very much
mm,
a dark period for Eurovision. So,
yeah,
but yeah, so I think kind of going into Eurovision 2017, they kind of needed to kind of zhuzh things up a little bit. And I mean, obviously this was just like their first go at it, so they didn't really know exactly what they were doing, but in a way I kind of think that worked. So I think 2017, now I might be completely wrong with this, but as far as I can remember, Festival da Canção 2017 was the first time in a they were able to be brought into any language that was not Portuguese. Now, that didn't mean that anyone. Oh wait, no, there was actually one. Sorry, I'm talking out of my ass here. There was one song that was able to be brought through to the competition that was in English, which is fantastic. And then as well as that, I mean, as well, we also had the sort of composers element of Festival da Canção. And I think that's a very unique element of Festival da Canção and sort of in general when it comes to Eurovision national selections. There's not so much of a push on sort of the singers, more so it's actually about the song itself, and so a lot more of the composers. I mean, do you think that was a better idea to sort of follow that route?
I think that is one of the main reasons why it is what it's been gotten to now, because it's something that makes Festival de Canção different to everything else, I think. Because there are national finals where you see like the same people over and over again. You see people who don't really get the music industry in that country in some cases. Like we see like people from like America, Sweden, like going to like Moldova and places like that where they're not going to get a culturally representative song because they're not representative of Moldova.
What
But
do you
in
mean?
part,
Dan, oh God, what was his name? Kinky Boots from that was trying to go to Belarus, but then obviously it was obviously rightfully called on the audition stage.
But when you're inviting Portuguese writers that RTP like no, they're inviting them themselves for the most part, it's going to get something that Portugal like, and that's generally what they send rather than this will do well at the Eurovision. It's we like this, we'll send it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I think it's a nice way of doing it because it means that it is very representative of what the sort of national music scene is like. I mean, that's obviously we are sort of overgeneralizing here. I mean, there probably is quite a lot of, for example, like throwaway pop that does make it into the charts in Portugal, but that isn't really shown as much, I guess, when it comes to Festival da Canção. But like with this, they reach out, like the national broadcaster RTP, they reach out to a lot of the sort of nation's sort of biggest composers, and they kind of let them sort of run away with stuff, which is quite nice. So with that, I mean, sort of looking from 2017 onwards, I mean, what a complete turnaround. I think it's fantastic to see a little bit of a renaissance, you know. I mean, everyone has their own sort of opinions on Amar Pelos Dois. I mean, how did you feel about it when it had won, and then obviously it went to Eurovision and then won again? So yeah, how did you react to that song?
It's never really been my thing, but I can't argue that it like the performance with especially Salvador and the staging didn't deserve something like that because it wouldn't have been my choice, but it's hard to argue against it, I think. I can't like, just sit here and say this song was robbed because they just weren't. Because even if you don't like the song, he sold it brilliantly, and he wouldn't have got like, a record points amount if he didn't. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, his sound resonated with people for a reason, and I think people really understood the intimacy of it, and you know, it really just offered a whole different approach for Portugal, which is fantastic, obviously. And you know, they might not win Eurovision all the time, but when they do, they smash records because obviously this is now the highest winning Eurovision song of all time with 758 points. So it's nice to see that, you know, when you do get to change up your strategy, it does work, you know. And I think kind of going into then when Portugal was actually hosting Eurovision, obviously then all of the local artists, domestic artists were like, we need to get in Festival da Canção right now. And I mean, you saw that the names in Festival da Canção in 2018, like Diogo Pissarra, JP Simões, Janeiro, Annabella, like all of these really, really big names were taking part. And it was already fantastic to see, you know. I mean, sort of looking into sort of 2017 and then going into 2018, did you see much of a shift?
I think one thing they did was I think they did. There was a little bit of bloat. I think that year there was I think more songs than there needed to be. I think, but if you win for the first time, it's gonna be like a bit of panic. I think about how do we follow this up. I don't think 2018 was the best Festival da Canção year, other than one or two songs, which we'll probably get to. But I think he's mentioned Janeiro. I'd like to say he was invited by Salvador Sobral. I
Really?
think it says it here.
Oh,
I think that's just something
I
I've never seen from anywhere else. I don't think they've repeated it since. But I would be I would like if more people did that. But I think it's not many people could get away with doing that. But I think Portugal can because Sweden they just like say this person who is on my label, and they probably do that with like Denmark, Norway as well. But Portugal, it feels a lot like people know and appreciate each other's art a lot more. They at least from the people I've like done interviews with, they genuinely appreciate each. They collaborate with each other regularly, which is a big thing. And
yeah, no, totally.
sorry, editor. And
It's all right.
they they can just tell that we always do the what's your favorite Eurovision question is, and they say Salvador Sobral. And I think that the Portuguese ones they will all say Salvador Sobral. I think that's such a testament to how how it's changed for Portugal in the last few years that he's resonated with an entire generation of songwriters in that way that people have bought into this Festival da Canção project because of him that I think it really wouldn't have worked if he didn't at least do very, very well, which he did.
Yeah, totally. I think he was really the person to take Festival da Canção into a completely new, different era. And I mean, we kind of saw that in the way that the show was done and the way that it was produced, because sort of previously in previous editions, they do like to sort of take the final venue sort of outside of Lisbon, because usually they have the sort of semifinals within RTP studios, and then they would go down to a big sort of final place. So, for example, in 2018, they took it out to Guimarães, and it was a pretty big spectacle, to say the least. I think there was at least about like 2 or 3 thousand people there, and it was quite nice to see, actually, you know. And of course, as well, I mean, in terms of the songs that we had, of course, I have to give a shout out to Ojardim. I mean,
I say I love the song. I don't get why Isabel's just sitting there. That's my one gripe with it.
yeah. I mean, let's be honest though. I mean, Portugal, when it comes to staging, have never been the best when it came to staging.
I
So
say they've got better recently, I think, but just very recently.
yeah. So it's been a steep learning curve for them, to say the least, I would say. But yeah, I mean, of course, when it came to the actual contest itself, they were able to tweak things, and obviously then Isaura was not just sort of plonked in the back of the stage, just waiting to see what was going to happen, being stuck in a straitjacket. So that was in itself quite a good idea. Yeah, so then obviously then finishing last in the final was not great on home turf.
I think it's not great, but it doesn't matter really. I think that was like I think when you host, it's a free hit, and
Yeah,
they took it well, and it didn't really deserve to come last, and it was competitive year. What can you do?
well, that's it. And to be honest, I mean, since Eurovision, I think a lot of people have really grown to like it now, especially within Eurovision. I mean, a lot of people liked it beforehand, like people appreciated it, but now it's really starting to get the love that it deserves, which I'm really quite happy about because it still gets fairly high. You know, like it's more mid-table when it comes to like ESC 250, but the fact that it's still regularly hitting the ESC 250, like what this year will be 6 years since Oshadim participated.
Yeah.
I think that's a testament to how good the song was, you know. Um, and then I kind of feel that kind of going into 2019, we kind of had a little bit of a strange kind of turn in Portugal where everyone kind of was, let's be strange, because the overall sort of thought for 2019 was very much like artistic. It was very much like not necessarily commercial pop. There was obviously some bits of that, but it was a lot more focused, I feel, on the elements of, you know, how can we show off this particular art piece. You know, I mean, the first one that comes to mind for me when it in 2019 is Surma with Pugna. uh that for me is one of the most beautiful songs in to ever try to go to Eurovision. And I understand why it didn't win because it was probably a little bit too understated, but that for me was a big turning point for how we were able to like experience Portuguese tradition, or you know what a Portuguese Eurovision song could be like. I mean, going through these again, I mean, what do you think about that?
I will say that 2019 was not my year for FDC because my favorites just didn't do very well, like at all. But I think of my top three, I think one got to the final and it was the third place one, and I don't think it did very well once it got there. Actually, no, it didn't even get there.
Oh no.
I think my top three were three of the four that got knocked out in semi-final one. So,
Mm. Oh no.
but things happen. I've had worse.
I mean, that's true. We should be grateful that you even got to see them on this on the stage anyway in the
Yeah.
semi-finals, which is something. I mean, I have to say I did quite like Telemavesh, and
I just don't get it. I
yeah, sort of
never have, never will.
in the planning for this, we me and Daniel were coming from very opposite ends of the spectrum on this, to be
It, I
honest.
think it is a song that you very much have to get, and if you do, you will love it. If you don't, you'll never understand why people do, and it's just never clicked.
Mm. And that's probably part of the reason why it didn't qualify in 2019. You
Yeah.
know, I think at that point, especially because it went to Eurovision and it had a lot of meaning to it in ways that probably didn't translate on the stage to an international audience. For example, like Joao the dancer has like had the kind of talons, but each talon was representing a specific
Yeah.
ideal. And then obviously the kind of the idea of the roses and everything like that. There was quite a lot of symbolism that just didn't like have that universal appeal.
Also, it's very Portugal, which is that's the best thing I can say about it.
Yeah,
Who else is going to do that?
no, it's true. I think it's true. But I think at that point, I think they learned maybe not to go so far out. Otherwise, you kind of
Yeah.
risk alienating your audience and sort of pulling a little bit of a Remedios Amaya, if you know what I mean. If people are a little bit too kind of what is this? They're not going to vote for it. So you need to kind of still have something palatable. Um, but I think going on from that though, they kind of refined it more in future editions of Festival da Canção. So like 2020, because we're slowly making our way through them. So in 2020, there was still a bit of sort of tradition and sort of Portugal-ness, but they were branching out a lot more, especially when it came to 2020. You know, we had Barbara Tinoco, for example, with Passepartout, the first song that was in French, right? And then Rebellion, the first song in English for quite some time as well. Not to mention then as well, we did have like in terms for the actual sort of artistic direction, we still had quite a lot of, for example, Jazz was there. Philippe Sambadu was also really well received as well with her song Je Beira Amarela do Sul. And then as well as that Movimento as well, Thoris and the Shine, I think that was pretty well received as well. At that point, though, they were starting to get more open call attention as well. So I think that at that point they were starting to learn that, okay, maybe we need to sort of open this up a little bit.
I think it was the open call winner that year, especially, I think was very good. It was Dubio and 351 with Sierra, and it's great. And I can see why they did more open calls off the back of that, because it was, at least to me, one of the best songs of the year.
I think it did become a big fan favorite when the songs were released. That and Barbara Tinoco, of course, but because I think everyone liked a bit of twee, and of course Barbara Tinoco is very much that kind of person, I would say.
I have my opinions on Barbara and her two songs.
I mean, very much the same.
I'll say I like them, but I know she can do so much better than those two.
Oh, really? Okay. See, I don't know her as an artist other than these two songs, so I'd have to see what else is there. You know,
it just feels just a bit of wasted potential, and the staging for Goodnight is just creepy.
Yeah, yeah. I still don't understand that staging to this day. We'll get to it for 2023, but yeah, that was a whole thing. I mean, in terms of the songs that I really liked, I really did like Meira, Copa de Gin. I did like that. I also really loved Elisa Rodrigues as well with Não Voltas Mais. That for me was so like it. Yes, it is bossa nova, but it's bossa nova done well.
Yeah,
and it's just you cannot listen to that and not like bop along a little bit. I just really had a nice time with that. But then of course, you know, we couldn't get to see any of this in the stage, and poor Lisa, who did win Eurovision, not Eurovision, she won Festival da Canção with Medo de Sentir. She could not go to Eurovision because it got cancelled. And this was quite sad as well, because Portugal was one of the last nations to do its national selection, because they usually hold it quite late. And it seemed as if like COVID was just like not really affecting the festival at all, because there was still quite a large contingent of people that were in both the semifinals and in the final as well, because I think the final was not in Lisbon, it was in Elvas, it seems, in the, I'm not going to try and say that name because it's going to take too long for me to try and understand it. But yeah, so it was a shame that, because there was a lot of good quality, and then obviously the winning song couldn't sort of have its moment to shine. But I think if anything, RTB took a lot of ideas for like from 2020 and then applied it to future years, which has been really, really quite nice to see. So sort of going into 2021, obviously with everything scaled back because of COVID and everything like that, they weren't really able to have the grand spectacle in the same way that they had done before. So everything was still just in Lisbon. But again, love a lot of these songs. And I mean, so they added an extra open call winner to this as well. So that was really quite nice to see. I mean, what was your overall sort of impression of some of these?
I think that, first of all, big disagree on the winner.
Oh,
there are times I can say the ones I don't like, but I can see why they went for it. This one, not really. Maybe it's me just getting on my over send something Portuguese. I like when you do that, but I think this song just, and like the meaning behind it, just don't sit right with me at all. And it's not like there was an absence of quality, because there really wasn't. There was just some great songs. You had Carolina Deslandes, Sarah Afonso, Fabio Maya were ones that resonated to me especially, which are all just brilliant.
Yeah.
But it got 10 from jury and televote. I will say I'm glad it's not kickstarted something where they say, oh, no more Portuguese. They've just gone right back to it, which is great, I think.
Yeah.
I I also think like this year is sort of like the birth of the Festival da Canção we get every year from now on. It just seems to resemble a lot more of what we see today. It's gone from the birthing stage to it's the full product. It's won. It's not won. It's finished. It's what it wants to be now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the actual production of the show sort of was beginning to reach the sort of golden era that we're in now with it. And I mean, I have to say that I didn't mind Black Mama winning, to be honest. I understand there is some pushback on the meaning. And I mean, I remember when we were doing the podcast back in 2021, I know that Rosie was particularly
Yeah.
not thrilled with the winner, which is understandable, of course. But yeah, you were definitely right that like there was a lot of good tracks from this year. I mean, standouts for me, obviously, Carolina de Schlange, like that, I love that. Who else was there? Sara Afonso, I love Contramal. I think it's a beautiful song. I think it deserved so much better. And I think a lot of the time, at this point, Portugal was getting a lot of slack because a lot of the songs that were in the national selection were slow, they were very ballady, and some people were not happy because it was, it's Eurovision. You're meant to have like a BPM higher than, 116. I'm not mentioning any names there, kittens. But of course, you need these kind of other songs just to stand out, just to help elevate all the other songs as well, because it means they can stand out as well as the sort of big bangers can. And I know that a lot of people also did like Saudade as well, which was Caretos and Romeo Pyrus as well. I didn't mind that, but it for me, like the upbeat song that I liked from that time. I mean, there were two. I loved Girasol. I think Girasol was a beautiful song. Still listen to that today, actually, which is quite nice. And then my guilty pleasure out of all of the songs that I've ever been to Festival de Canção is I Got Music, Da Chick. This is so naff, but it's so good. And I absolutely love it. Um, so yeah, so we even though there was a lot of problems in terms of like how like the production of it and restrictions during COVID and stuff like that, I think RTP was still able to have quite a good selection of songs, which is quite nice. And it's great that they managed to keep it going on into the next year as well with 2022. 2022 and 2023 for me have been the pinnacle for Festival de Canção. I think the quality in both of them have been phenomenal. I mean, like, what do you think?
I will say for 2022, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I think Saudade Saudade it is one of the best songs ever written. Like, forget even Festival de Canção Eurovision. That there is just something in that song that is just so incredible. And to have come out of a Eurovision national final is insane.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a testament that the range of different Eurovision artists who have been asked what their favorite Eurovision song is and have said this is such a testament to just how beautiful of a melody and a song it is. Like we've got like Monica and Nikita, Angelina Mango, Vis Minust have said it. I think so, someone from Latvia, City Zeni had said it. It's
Yeah.
so many completely different artists from all just corners of the like music spectrum have said this one song is just their favorite. It just shows so well that it's
Yeah.
just such an amazing song. But I also want to give a shout out to Blashy, who I think was very robbed, but it doesn't really matter when what one won. And especially I like that she invited two of the people from the national final to Eurovision with her, which I just
Yeah.
love because it's just it just seems like a nice thing to do.
I think so. I mean, the thing is that with her final national final performance, I mean, she took on board what people had said, and they wanted to hear the vocals, they wanted to hear the harmonies. And I mean, obviously after winning Eurovision, she understood the power of female vocals, and why not show off the vocals of some of the other contestants that were there. I mean, Diana Castro and Milianish, I mean, they both had fantastic songs in Festival da Canção anyway, but I mean, their voices sort of adding to the kind of harmonies and the girls, it was so good. Like, I mean, you are a listener, if you were listening to this, or watcher, reader, whatever, you will know that both me and Daniel are big Maro stands. So, you know, Salat Salat is by far and away one of the most amazing tracks. I think written, the way that it's produced, the way that it's arranged, the fact it's in a 6/8 time signature, but people can still get it as well and they can clap along. And it's just there's beauty in simplicity. And even though it comes across as being quite simple, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And it was so beautiful to see. And I'm so happy that Mara went. And she's had such an amazing career since then.
Yeah. I think she's only getting started as well.
100%. I mean, the fact that like Billie Eilish is shouting her out.
Yeah, she can go like big.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, she's already toured with Jacob Collier, who's already gone quite big anyway in terms of at least within the jazz scene. But like, she's making connections with all of these different artists, and people are realizing how good of an artist she is, and I'm so happy about that. I know you're going to see Maro later this year, so I'm incredibly jealous because I got to see her when she was opening for the Paper Kites last year, and it was so beautiful. Just hearing Sadat Sadat done with just a guitar and her, it just touches you in such an amazing way. Quick shout outs to a couple of the other people that were in Festival da Canção this year. Pongo and Tristani. Degradé was an amazing show. And what I love about it is that, I mean, this is something that's definitely a lot deeper, and we probably would not be able to touch on this in the podcast or the video, but like, I love the way that Portugal does not shy away from its sort of colonial past, because it continues to take on a lot of artists from its former colonies and like that have obviously now become independent countries. Because I mean, Pongo's from Angola, as well as that, I mean, Leo Midea from Brazil this year, for example, too. And it's just really nice to see that they are just as welcome into the competition as any other person. Also really love Fado Bicha as well. Povo Pequenino was an amazing song, and the duo both being trans and non-binary and having a song about basically like looking your colonial past in the mirror. So good when it's such a good beat too. Love that. And then as well as that, I also have to give a shout out as well to Diana Castro, and then also with Kubita with Uma Mensagem Tua as well. I think that was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful song. I think that was sadly undeservedly cold in the selection, but I do understand why, because she did just kind of stand there and just hope that the song would kind of carry itself, and it's like, that's not how we do things here. But yeah, so with 2022, and as well, I think something really quickly that we just also need to add. I mean, the fact as well that Mauro managed to get a top 10 result for Portugal, I think was also really quite nice as well. That was just something good to see. And it kind of
third in the running order.
Well, that too, very early on. And of course, obviously, we know that, well, Czech Republic, like, they did open early. They were the first people to perform, and they only got what, 5 points. Now I will say that 35 points from third place, like in the running order, is quite good, even though it's it should have been more, but that's just a story for another time. And then 2023 for Festival da Canção, I mean, that in itself was quite interesting. Okay, so we had again double the amount of open call like positions available. We had 4 this time. And I mean, we had history being made, because it was the first time that an open call winner had actually won the show. But it stood up I Could Have stood up against a lot of really good songs. I mean, like, yeah, what do you think?
I watched this last night. I watched it back, and I didn't remember it being just so good because the because that final was just so stacked with just the amount of just
Literally.
that it's like hit after World Needs Therapy after hit,
Yeah, it was
and
beautiful.
I was making arguments to someone like, why didn't this win? And then I look in my ranking, it's my fourth. Just this
Wow.
the amount of just sheer quality and not it's not all samey as well. It's not all sad ballads, which they're good, but they brought something different this year, and I can see why it paid off. I
Yeah.
I think if I were to give shouts to all the ones I liked, it would be longer than the ones I didn't, but especially Barbara, if you don't ignore the staging, it's a really good song, I think. You
Close your
can't
eyes.
win you can't win Charlie Brown with Contrasting Mudo. It's just there's something like otherworldly about it, I think, that
Mhm.
it just such like a peaceful and really nice, calming, atmospheric song. Mimi Cat, Curacao, just so incredible. Imagine what she could have done if she had more than €5 on her staging. And I think you touched on the sort of former colonial people earlier. Evandro, born in Angola, came over and just a really good song. An artist I've been meaning to look more into, and it's worth that. Claudia Pascual, I think, not as good as Ojo Team, but very, very different to it, which is I can appreciate that she's got very good versatility to our history, and as well as Inés Apenas, it's never gonna win this national final, but it's just like it's nice, which I think we all every year just needs like a song that's like, yeah, I like this, it's cute. And I like that her little dance looks like one you'd have done on Club Penguin. It just feels like really like fun to me.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I see
And
exactly what you mean, though.
something that came into my head, Edmundo Inacio, it feels like a Balkan ballad if it came from Portugal. I
Oh yeah,
I don't really see if that makes any sense at all, but in my head it does.
yeah.
Like it feels like it would be a Serbian Montenegro entry, but it's Portuguese.
I mean, it's Serbian and Montenegro, like Serbia and Montenegro 2004, but with very Portuguese lyrics. I'll tell
Yeah.
you that much. The lyrics are very interesting because it's about like having anxiety and sort of comparing yourself whilst you're out dancing. I don't want to do this anymore. Like I don't want to be out here. Um, like it's really, really good storytelling, you know.
I'd say
Um, so
it's
yeah,
sort of like really Portuguese, but also could be from anywhere at the same time,
I see
which is
that.
just
Yeah.
I think if he got to Eurovision, it would have done very well, especially with the juries.
Oh yeah. It had very big jury potential. But I think in a way, I think it was kind of needed to bring Mimi Cat because I feel like
Yeah,
just as a way to sort of spice up what Portugal
yeah.
brought, because obviously we're all Eurovision nerds. We watch all the national selections. We know what we're on about. People watching at home will just watch the show and be like, "Oh, well, what are the Portugal doing another like ballad again? Like what?" So this was a nice way of breaking that up a little bit, which I get. Saying that though, oh my god, I love that. This is by far and away the best edition of Festival da Canção that has ever been. Like genuinely, I mean, looking at my sort of Spotify, like my Eurovision Spotify playlist, I want to say that at least 9 songs from this selection are on my playlist. Like that's unheard of. Like to have half of the songs in your, it's amazing. I loved it.
I think it got into my Spotify Wrapped as my number one album of the year.
I think it was the same for me too, to be honest. Which just goes to show how good the quality of the songs were, you know. Um, big shout out to okay, I'm gonna diverge from you a little bit in terms of the songs that I did because I did really love You Can't Win Charlie Brown. I did really love that. But some of the other songs that I really did like were Neon Soho, Endless World. For me, that was I think my third most listened to song of 2023. I loved the sort of dark, ethereal synths that were brought to it. I think the fact it was in English meant that a lot of people could relate to it, and it wasn't just like throwaway lyrics. They were very like intriguing, very poetic, And I mean, I could just gush about that song for about an hour if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. And that, as well as that, I also did really love Esse Povo, Sapatos de Cimento. I did really like that. I mean, the fact that they were a super group that was all brought together purely for the sake of Festival da Canção, and listen to those harmonies, they are so good. Yes, they did kind of get in as a result of basically their televote like number did not work, so they got in basically thanks to a technicality, but it was needed. I thought it was really nice to see. And then as well, Sal Viver. I love listening to that track. I think it's so like full of energy, and it's a nice departure from the sort of rock kind of elements that we can get. Like this is Portuguese rock that's done cleanly, and I think I thought it was done really really well. Obviously Claudio Pasquale as well did really like that. Lara Lee Funambula also really really good. Also want to give a shout out as well to Moya with Too Much Sauce. I am not a big fan of rap when it comes to like English because a lot of the time it's just not something that I resonate with. But in Portuguese, I don't know why it just really hit, and I think the Afrobeat kind of coming in that I thought it was really really good. Also, huge shout out Bandua with Bandeiras. I think that should have been in the final. That was a beautiful song, and really I think this was the kind of the Fado Bisha of 2023 in the fact that a lot of people were wanting it to qualify, and then when it didn't, it was like, well, this is a travesty for culture, which is it was sad because who where did they finish? They finished third in the second round of voting because then The World Needs Therapy managed to get in instead, which is yeah, sure, we'll go with that. But yeah, no, it was a tight race, but I just love this show so much. And then obviously we'll quickly talk about Festival da Canção this year because I believe we talked about it. We were on the thing for it this year. But again, no like notes about this again. Such a great show, such a great sort of a way of showing off Portuguese-ness of it. And yes, we've seen a lot more again diversity in terms of the songs that were taking part, a lot more upbeatness, a lot of sort of experimentation. There wasn't just sort of fado or anything like that. There was rap, there was jazz, there was sort of drum and bass a little bit, there was ballads, there was whatever you would like to call Dia in the best way. I love that song so much, but even I had no fucking clue what it was. Yeah, so I think it was such a good show, and we need to like just be grateful that we have a show like this. And I mean, also just one other thing, just before obviously we've been chatting for quite a while about this, but can we talk about the graphics?
Yes.
Because girl, how
they're
good
good.
is it? Oh my god. Like, I just don't understand. How can a national final be so good in terms of the music, but then also so good in terms of like the visual identity? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, like, what was your favorite one out of all of the ones that we'd seen?
Oh, I think graphics 2023 for me, but it's tough to compare because they're all hits.
Yeah. And it's good because they still have like this is gonna sound like such a weird
I think
like way of it. But sorry, go on.
they are basically the same, but completely different. That,
Yeah.
that there's so many ways they've gone about having the same visual identity every year, with a new twist, with a new like color scheme, that it always works. That
Mm.
and I don't really know how it just. I wouldn't have been able to keep that up for like 7 years. I don't know how they have.
Yeah. I think it's the typeface in the font that it's basically the logo itself that stays the same, but then they're like, for example, they have like completely different motifs about stuff. So like 2022, it was like the paper and like kind of posters ripping off the posters. 2023 was like the neon. 2024 is kind of more like techie kind of things, but it just works, and I just love it. Oh, honestly, our RTP like look, we've been giving the artists really big commendments here, but like fair play as well to RTP for actually like creating this amazing spectacle with the visual identity. The show, like the stages are very different each year, which is quite nice as well, because it's not just sort of giving us like a Melfest style thing where it's like, okay, well, we know how it's going to look like. We know that like they're going to have these things, they're going to have this thing. You know, there is a little bit, there are some parts where it's like copy and pasting, but not that much. So it just allows a lot more creativity, which I absolutely love. Um, so I guess it's just like maybe like one other final question. I mean, what is next, do you think, for Festival da Canção? What else can they do? Because it seems like
Uh,
they've done so much. So what else can they do?
I think that what they just really need to do is more of the same. That's sort of like the highest praise I can give. That everything is going well. You don't really need to change anything. I'd say maybe just to like get a consistent amount of open call winners every year, because it's just chopping and changing every year, it seems like. And I think get get it out of the RTP studios if there's the appetite for it. It doesn't have to be like a big arena. It just has to be somewhere different. I think that people can like get excited for like, ooh, it's in our town now, or it can still be in Lisbon, but be in like a different venue that maybe it's just different that way. But I think other than that, the the contest and the culture around it, like all the like the green room bits, I think just it's like an ode to FDC, that or like the fun trinkets they bring in. It's just the show works so well from start to finish, and nothing needs to change. There are some national finals where I say burn it down and start again. This one, this one, just keep going. Portugal, you're doing so well, sweetie. Just keep at it. You. I think that there is the talent and there is the motivation. There is the public will that they can win again soon if they want to.
I think this is the most praise that I've ever heard you talk about a national final. So this is like unheard of for me. Oh God, no, I think you've definitely hit the nail on the head with that though. I think there's so much that they're doing right. Why would they want to change anything, you know?
Yeah.
Uh I mean, obviously just keep up with the fantastic designs in terms of like the
Yeah.
graphics and the stage and stuff like that, because you've carved out a really solid fan base, even just for the graphics alone. I mean, like, how
Yeah.
many times have I seen on Twitter just like, oh, yeah, absolutely love the graphics for Festival da Canção this year? I'm like, if the fact that you can do that year after
Yeah.
year is amazing. I just love it. But yeah, in terms of like the actual songs though, I mean, it's a clearly working formula for them to invite the composers first.
Yeah.
Then they can decide to write whatever song they want to write, or they can just pull out a song that they had already before. Because you don't have to write a song like specifically
No.
for a festival that comes out, but if you have it, you can use it. Um, so yeah, continue to just listen, put your ear to the ground of the Portuguese music scene. It's small, but everyone knows everyone, and you can tell what kind of style people are after, right? Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, continue with the experimentation of the genres. I think, it's really good to see that Portugal is sort of branching out from this idea that it's all like slow ballads or fado or sort of, traditional kind of style things. I mean, the fact we had pop, the fact we had jazz, and all of these other different genres, I think it's a testament to showing how the Portuguese scene is changing and how RTP is sort of helping to foster that, you know. Um, yeah, and also just keep Filomena Cautela as a host. I
Yeah,
love her so much. She's amazing. You know, I mean, we knew that anyway, sort of thanks to 2017 anyway, regardless. And then obviously Eurovision 2018 when she was a green room host. That like we knew that she was good and she's just a good egg. We need to protect her
yeah,
at all costs, you know. Um, but yeah, I think there's not really much else that we can say. I mean, I if I could give like her, if I could give Festival da Canção a grade, it would just be like A plus, A star, H1, whatever you want to call it, like just the top level. This is just it's one of the best national finals that we have at the moment. And I think a lot of
yeah,
people are starting to realize that because especially in the last few years as well with Festival de Canção and Melody Festival and both falling like the finals, both falling on the same day. People will watch Melody Festival because it's earlier in the evening, but they will stick around to watch Festival de Canção because
yeah.
they know that what they're going to get is good quality, you know. I think that's a testament to RTP, and you cannot do much better than that. I mean, also just really want to give a quick shout out as well to Maria Freire, the head of press for RTP for Portugal and stuff. She also is the show director a lot of the time for Festival de Canção and sort of with not because I got the chance to go to Festival de Canção this year and I got to see how things were done behind the scenes. She is practically running around the studio trying to make sure everything's gotten done in time. And you know, we need to give props to the people behind the scenes because like you guys put on the show that we all love. So yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, any sort of final points on Festival de Canção just before we kind of wrap things up?
I just want to think about just how grateful and proud and happy all the artists are to be there. I think maybe it's unique to Portugal, but especially with the ones we deal with, they're so like happy and like it's like a pleasure for them to speak to people like us and to take part in the competition. And it's a cliche, but to share their art with as many people as they can.
Yeah.
And it's such a great way of allowing people to do that.
No, totally.
Especially with the open call, which I'm so happy Mimi Cat won because it was like a justification for more open call acts. And I think like the ones we got this year were great as well. And some I don't know why they weren't invited by RTP originally because they deserve to have been. They were on the whole very, very good. And some like good artists beforehand as well that just deserve they all deserve the world, every one of them.
Yeah, genuinely. I cannot say that more than enough, you know. I mean, um it was quite nice actually. This is just a bit of an anecdote, but when I was in Festival de Canção this year, we had a little bit of a press conference with Maria and the other person's name escapes me. But they explained how you know before 2017 a lot of big artists wouldn't touch Eurovision because they thought it was so camp and kitsch. It wasn't something that their music could thrive on. And I think since 2017 they had said that they needed someone to kind of go there and realize okay and then come back and tell the artists in the country being like you know what, they won't sort of ruin your music. They won't change your identity or anything like that. They won't make you sell out. It's you can still be artistically there. And having the artists say that is a good sign because it shows that actually other artists will want to respond to that. So yeah, props to RTP and for all of that. It's fantastic. And yeah, and also thanks obviously to all of the people who want to speak to us because obviously you know we're happy to just learn more about the Portuguese music scene and hopefully you guys can learn a little bit more about the Portuguese music scene as well. It seems like it's absolutely thriving right now, so which is fantastic to see as well. But yeah, so I think with that we should probably wrap this up because we've been gushing over Portugal for probably a little bit too long.
Yeah.
But hey, look, you've got this is what you signed up for when you decided to press play on this video. So I mean, that's on you. No. But yes, so thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening to us. Let us know. I mean, what do you think about Festival da Canção? Do you think it was a good national selection this year? Have you watched it in previous years? Do you think that we're on the up for them, or do you think things are going to start tapering off now? Like let us know what you think, what's going on in the comment section down below. Also, continue to follow us on all of our social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Threads, Tumblr, Blue Sky, all at That Euro site. Also, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for our podcast as well, at That Euro Podcast. Also, subscribe to us here on YouTube. Also, subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We are pretty much everywhere. You cannot get rid of us. So shall we say goodbye?
Okay. Bye.
Bye.